I want to bring into the conversation now Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin. Sir, thanks for your time.
Hello, Thomas.
So let's start with the Secretary Carter and his statements today. Do you feel as though the U.S. has a more clear strategy in the fight against ISIS currently?
No, and obviously I agree with the goal that President Obama stated 15 months ago to degrade and ultimately defeat ISIS. I think the difference is that President Obama's vision of ultimately is a lot longer than I think Republicans and I think most Americans' vision. We want to defeat ISIS because as long as ISIS is not overtly losing, they are going to be perceived as winners, and they will continue to inspire and gain adherence to this barbaric ideology. So we really do need to defeat ISIS sooner rather than later.
So when we talk about what it is to degrade and defeat ISIS, now we're in this different news cycle about what it means to degrade and demean Muslims based on what Donald Trump has said in the worldwide criticism, sir, that's come out 24 hours after his proposal to ban Muslims from traveling to America. Do you support his policy if he were to be president?
No, I do not. And really what I've been focusing my efforts as the chairman of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs is our vulnerabilities. We've taken very seriously the fact that we don't have secure borders. If I take a look at the vulnerabilities facing this nation as relates to potentially terrorists coming into this country, I would look at our very unsecure borders. We've held 13 hearings, a number of site visits down to the border as well as to Central America. We have a border that is not secure, and that is quite honestly what I think is our biggest vulnerability.
So it was back in September, though, in reference to Donald Trump, you said you did not support his plan to deport 11 million undocumented immigrants. You said it was not a solution. What's the language that you want to use against Donald Trump's policy of banning Muslims? Do you have a passionate response, as many other Republican leaders have not expressed, about what that really means, what that rhetoric truly demonstrates?
Let's take a look at what we need to do. I agree with Secretary Jay Johnson. We need to engage Muslim communities here in America so that if they see something, they say something. This is something that I agree with President Obama. We need to get the Muslim world, the moderates, to rise up and renounce and reject this extreme ideology. We're going to need them on our sides. We're obviously going to need the Arab states as part of a committed coalition, the willing to go in and be the boots on the ground with American troops to deny ISIS that territory. This is an enormously complex problem. I don't want to address it with demagoguery. I want to address it with reality, facing that reality, and then actually looking for real solutions, which is securing our border and defeating ISIS in Iraq and eventually in Syria.
So let's talk about it from this policy angle, because the House overwhelmingly passed this bill yesterday, which essentially tightens control on visa-free travel to the U.S. You're one of the sponsors of this. So how confident are you this will stop terrorists from getting in our borders?
There is no panacea. There's nothing that's going to totally solve the problem. This improves our security. The visa waiver program itself improves our security because it allows all this, it requires all this information intelligence sharing between the visa waiver countries. But there are vulnerabilities. We held a hearing on the Syrian refugee problem, about the vetting process. I support requiring the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security to certify that we don't take shortcuts in that vetting process. I support the fact that anybody who has traveled to Syria and Iraq, and we've actually expanded to other countries where there's real terrorist activity, that they don't come into this country without an interview. So there are a number of things we can do to strengthen our visa waiver program, strengthen these procedures, but we are vulnerable. There is no 100% cure here. We need a robust, intelligent, and effective intelligence gathering capability. We've degraded that to a certain extent as technology has moved on with encrypted accounts. So listen, we have got to understand that the threat of Islamic terror is real, it's growing, and we got to take this threat seriously.
Sir, as we talk about vulnerability, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the Washington Post putting out a look at the top 5 senators who stand to potentially lose their seats because of Donald Trump and the effect he's having on the party. They put you at number 2 in the tight race that you have with Russ Feingold. Are you worried about your own re-election if Donald Trump were to be the lead on the Republican ticket?
I'm actually feeling pretty good about my race. Obviously, I'd rather be number 24 rather than number 2 on their list. But listen, what I've been doing, my approach to my campaign is I'm doing my job as chairman of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. I'm addressing these problems. I'm telling the voters of Wisconsin, the citizens of Wisconsin, the truth, because that's the first step. I'm come from a manufacturing background. You don't solve a problem until you first admit you have one.
Senator Ron Johnson. Sir, thank you for your time. I do appreciate it.
Have a great day.
You too.